and my intention is to remove as much of the clutter from this side as I can. I wanted to remove the air conditioner compressor, but to do that I think I've actually got to remove the reservoirs here first, and also this asbestos heat shield. So I might start with that, and once I remove that I should be able to see what's underneath. Now there's a lot of brake and clutch components under there which you really can't see, and there's also the, which I assume is a charcoal fuel canister which picks up from the petrol tank. So at this stage I'll start with this and see what difficulties there are in removing that. Got to be careful with this asbestos. Now I've already sprayed it with some paint, so hopefully that will hold in place, and I'll just very carefully undo those, but I've probably got to disconnect the brake lines first so I can pull this off as one unit. Right, I've taken the reservoirs off and the first asbestos shield. Need to be very careful taking that up. I kept it moist even though I'd already sprayed it with spray enamel, and it didn't flake off, so that was good. But when I prized it off the mounts, there's some of these metal mounts here, some of it stuck to the back of that, so what I've done is I've sprayed that with enamel too, just to hold it in place until I get these right off, so that the asbestos needs to be properly disposed of, and you just can't leave it lying around. It's now enabled me to get to the pump, so that might be the next thing I'll take off. Oh, by the way, I cut the brake and clutch lines off. I couldn't undo the chainy clips, so I just didn't bother to persist. The hoses are going to be replaced anyway. So next, take the this air conditioner pump off, which will give me a little bit more access to the rest of this side. The air conditioner compressor, quite a heavy unit. It's I'd say it's an original factory fit, or certainly a dealer fit. The mounting for the compressor and alternator is actually huge and quite ugly. This massive structure, and quite heavy as well, just sits out over the front of the motor here, sort of attaches to the water pump area. I'm not too sure whether I'll put it back on. The motor looks much neater without it. I mean, I still haven't removed all of the dryer hoses and so on, which are wound in around everything. It's a very, very tight fit to try and get all these air conditioning hoses and pipes in. I mean, there's enough clutter in there already, but I'll easily get that out. That's probably the next thing, just to remove those. Then I'll remove the the heat shield over the manifold, a few other bits, distributor, oil filter. So it's getting to the stage where the motor's actually visible, and I can see what's left to actually disconnect and remove it from the chassis. Now, I had intended doing a compression test of this engine. I certainly wasn't going to run it. Unlike a lot of the shows I've seen on television, where someone hasn't had a car running for many years, 20 plus years, and Oh, let's put a bit of petrol in. Oh, the engine turns over, start it up. Oh, that's okay. All very good. This one sat for 37 years, and there is, probably can't see it on the video, light surface rust in here. I've sprayed a bit of WD-40 on there, so it's softened that up. But if this had been started, all of that grip would have gone down through the motor. Yes, it probably would have run, and then done a lot of damage to the motor. So certainly my way of doing it is, if these things haven't run for years, you just don't start them up. You strip them down, clean them up, check everything out, reassemble, and then start it. Now the condition of the motor, as I say, I was going to do a compression test. I'm now not going to do it. The condition of the camshaft sort of tells a bit of a story. It's perfect. This is the exhaust side. The cam lobes are unblemished. Okay, the back's got a bit of oil marks on it, but the lobes are perfect. They're pristine. Inlet's the same. Now that leads me to believe that the mileage on the Speedo, which is 40,000, so 40,000 miles, is in fact 40,000 miles, not 140,000 miles. Now this car was only on the road for, well, certainly no more than 9 years. Last registered in 1979. It didn't get to the States until early, at best early January 1970. So 9 years on the road, 40,000 miles, that seems quite feasible. The condition of the camshaft, it seems to confirm 40,000 miles. So when I strip the engine down, it'll actually confirm that. I have a lot of respect for anyone who attempts to repair anything on an E-Type, particularly the braking system. To get at it is extremely difficult. I've started to pull master cylinders out. The only way I was actually able to attempt it was to first of all take the stone guard out. I've then had to remove the other heat shields down below here, starting off with the clutch master cylinder. Remove that was easy enough, that's up the top. Then the brake master cylinder. Now I've been working on the booster, and I've finally figured out that you actually can't get that out through the top. I don't know whether you can get it out through the side, probably not. It appears as though it's got to go out through the bottom, which means you've got to take the bottom splash shield off, which I've done. Even then you can't get it out because it fouls on a few things down the bottom there. There's a, I'd say, brake light switch in here. That's got to come out. So it's a very difficult job to get these out to repair. I mean, it doesn't matter to me because it's all coming apart anyway. But if this had to be repaired on a car that was running, it'd be a very expensive proposition in terms of labour to get it out to repair. So anyway, doesn't matter, it's got to come off anyway. It's getting close to being decluttered on this side. Very cluttered. I guess being a left-hand drive vehicle, it's made it a little bit worse. But anyway, it's coming off. I'll be able to get to the stage where I can get this rear pipe off here. I've got more access now in through the frame, so it shouldn't be too hard to get off. So I'm getting close to being able to get reasonable clearance for the motor to come out. I've been working on this bonnet hinge on and off for about 3 weeks now. How much time all up? Oh, gee, I guess at least an hour, maybe more. I've managed to get one off. As I said before, I've had to cut the hinges, but then I couldn't get the pivot bush out. It was, well, as you can see, there's a coating of rust on that. Not really rusted badly, it's just a coating of rust, but it would not move. Now, despite all the suggestions, just use a heat gun, heat it up a little bit, not too much, put some WD-40 and it will come off. Well, I've been doing that, as I say, for about 3 weeks. I decided to apply a little bit more heat, not a lot, using a propane torch. I mean, I didn't heat this up so it was glowing, but I certainly made it warm, probably so warm that you probably couldn't put your finger on it for too long. WD-40, sprayed that on, but as you can see that in here it's all still dry, so even with the heat and the WD-40 being sprayed when it's warm, it wasn't penetrating in. So what I ended up doing, you can see the scoring on the bit of hinge there, I ended up using a chisel flush with the fitting bar there, and then just, I didn't hit it, I mean I tapped it reasonably hard, and I even tapped the end of my thumb there, and also part of the back part of the thumb before the knuckle. I hit that with a hammer. But just by doing that, tapping on that side and then underneath, and then this side and underneath, applying more heat, gradually it started to move. Then I put the Stilsons on, managed to get a grip on the bush itself with the Stilson. Put an additional bar on the Stilson to get a bit more leverage, and then use that to try and move it a little bit. Now I was eventually able to move it no more than about that much, so I just kept moving it backwards and forwards just a little bit, tapping it in the loose position and then moving it again, and then tapping it and then moving it again. And eventually I was able to move this further around, and with the tapping and the movement of the Stilsons it came off. So not as easy as it should have been. I now have to repeat that on the other side, and no doubt another hour or so and I'll get that off. But at least there's no damage, which is good, and that's the main thing. I didn't want to damage this at all, so not too much heat. You don't want to have a glowing hot, because it's it's got a brazed end on here, but anyway, it's off at long last without damaging the bar.